This morning we're going to be in Exodus. In fact, we're going to be quite a few chapters in Exodus here this morning. And kind of continuing on, I'm normally not a topical preacher. I like to go expositionally, kind of verse by verse, chapter by chapter. And this kind of has brought us to, there's a lot of echo in here. Is it just me? Kind of brought us to a time frame where kind of want to keep the same focus. So I'm kind of jumping around and certainly not even going into the time frame because of, well, here we're back to Exodus, and we've been all around in the history of Israel. Interesting that spend a lot of this time frame in the Old Testament. But here in Exodus, we want to look at kind of a responding to chaos, responding to disaster. And a lot of passages that we go to in that regard, but I think the example here is perfect. Is that too much of an echo?
It's a little loud, but I don't think it's echo.
Maybe just use the other mic. Just gonna switch. All right, but before we do, let's begin with a word of prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you again for your goodness, for your word. I pray that you allow me to decrease so that you alone would increase here this morning. I pray that the challenge to our hearts would be clear. I pray that we'd be able to grasp the truth of your word. Certainly be able to see, and again in a very familiar passage, the reality of you and ultimately the reality of us in that regard. And I just pray that you would challenge each one of our hearts, mine included, that you would instruct us, that you would teach us, that we walk worthy of you with our lives, and we give you the glory for it. In Jesus' name, amen. We occasionally will watch sort of medical shows or movies or whatever on TV, and a lot of times Caitlin and I will try to determine the diagnosis before it's given on TV. I've got about 10 years of experience in the back of an ambulance, but that now is coming up on, well, quite a while ago that ended. 2006, 2007, somewhere in there, so it's been a while. Caitlin obviously has not started any nursing training, but she checks out books from the library. In fact, her last book I think was on pathology. And so for a couple of weeks, all that we heard was all these very odd diseases and their symptoms and pictures of rashes, and it was just usually at mealtime, very interesting mealtime discussions in that regard. And so anyway, when we watch these shows, we will often try to come up with the diagnosis as it's going on, and see how close we are when Hollywood determines what they believe was the diagnosis in their presentation. Well, one thing, if you ever watch those kinds of shows, one thing is also clear that is actually pretty true to life. Probably nothing else is as true to life as this. The reality of those that are kind of third party, those who are family members, those who are close friends, and their response to what is going on. And you'll have some, and I recall this not only as an EMT for those 10 years, but as well as a pastor for the last 20 years. There are times that you are alongside of that third-party person. I'm not trying to diminish their role by calling them a third party, but you understand what I'm saying, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, whomever it is. And so they're not the ones that are injured, they're not the ones that are very ill, they are the ones that perhaps called 911, they're the ones that found them, they're the ones that love them, and here they are, whether they're on the scene for me as an EMT or perhaps showing up at the hospital, which many times was my role as a pastor. And there'll be those that I've stood alongside or sat alongside of that you almost kind of beg them without saying it to have some sort of response. You can see with their set face that there's a whirlwind of thought taking place in their mind, but they're exhibiting no emotion. And you almost kind of want to encourage that. Come on, something here. You should be having some sort of response here. And I can just tell, as probably most people can tell, that they're working harder at suppressing their emotions than just allowing those emotions to come forth. And many times that will end up in some further chaos for them in the future. But then there's as well those that you almost, again, without saying words, want to, okay, cool, this is enough. I don't remember the details, and maybe my wife would remember this. I don't remember any details, so I'll just share it somewhat in ignorance. But I recall that it seems like it was in my pastor hat, not an EMT hat, that I was at a nursing home for somebody that was not doing well, and while there, the ambulance had to be called. And so I'm thinking this was a pastor role. And it was it was in Kiwani, and it was at the old hospital was the one involved. And so I was there, and the ambulance arrived, and I left to head up to the hospital. And I was an EMT at that time, and knew the ER staff at the hospital relatively well. And so I went up there to wait for the arrival of the ambulance with this patient, and was able to give the ER staff kind of a heads up. Okay, here's what we got going on, here's what I saw, here's why we called 911, here's what they were doing when they were arriving, here's how far away they are, and kind of give them those details. And I recall saying to this, that there is a third party. Again, I'm not trying to diminish the role of a family or a friend or whomever it was. I don't remember who this was. But it was a third party, uninjured, not ill person, who was, like I say, overreacting, because we all react in a different way, but they were very vocal, we'll say it that way, they were very vocal. And so I remember trying to kind of politically correctly say to the nursing staff that undoubtedly there's going to be one person that's going to be arriving that they're very loud, they're not handling this very well. And somewhat true to what you often will see on television, they began to kind of, all right, we're going to put them in this room. They started getting stuff and equipment already in that room, and they got the doctor ready in person. And I remember when they spoke to me and knowing that I was a pastor, that I was going to be handling the family when they showed up. But they specifically assigned, I don't know if it was a nurse or a CNA or who it was, but they specifically assigned one person for this one person that was going to be showing up. And I just recall this being thankful, because as a pastor, obviously I have more than just one person, but many times the loudest person gets the most attention. And so I was thankful for that, to be able to have some assistance in that regard. You know, we all respond to chaos. We all respond in medical needs in very different ways. And that is not to say that there's some ways that are better than others. I don't believe that the Word of God, other than for those that are children of God, we are to sorrow, but sorrow as those that do have hope. We're not to sorrow as with no hope. But there's no regulations in the Word of God that you can only shed so many tears, or only mourn for so many days. There was kind of a tradition that they had as far as mourning would go, but those are all really up to us, and we're so very different. And I can say as well, to bring it to our COVID-19, there's been a lot of different responses for that too today. And I guess I can give the summary now before we get into the message. How is it that we are responding to what we're going through now? Because I can guarantee you, maybe much longer for those of us in Illinois, but at some point, we will go back to whatever the new normal is. And at some point, all the restrictions that are upon us will be over. I'm wondering if some of these new lawsuits against our governor will wind up following suit with Wisconsin, and we'll determine as a state, and more specifically as a church, what we will do in that regard. But you know, the truth is that if the Lord tarries, at one point this will be done. But I can also guarantee you, at one point when this is done, there'll be something else. It'll be the killer bees. It'll be something. There'll be something else. If it's not a regional or global event, I can guarantee you that we individually will be going through something. And the question is, how will we respond? What will we do? In Exodus chapter 3, we may spend a couple of weeks here just kind of going through Exodus, because there's so much involved here. And again, I like preaching expositionally. We will not be going verse by verse through Exodus, but there's a lot of events that I think have great application to us today. In Exodus chapter 3, I won't read all of the verses, but we have the cry of the people taking place in Exodus chapter 3. Look at verse 7. It says, "And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction." Literally, it has that meaning of misery. Could even be translated, and sometimes is, especially outside of the Word of God. In the Hebrew, this word could be translated as depression. Children of Israel, obviously in bondage in Egypt, are going through great depression. They're going through great misery. Literal word, misery. Continuing on in verse 7. I have sincerely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry. Now that word cry is an important word, because we're going to be looking at it here again in a few minutes. But this word cry is not a quiet sob. It's not that stone-faced response in the ER that I've seen many times of someone who is committing themselves to have no emotional response. This literally is a word that could be translated as a shriek. And so when you look at this word cry and translate it in a word that means a shriek, this is not just a wailing, as I've seen in ERs from time to time. Family members arriving and they're just wailing. This is a shriek. This is almost that instantaneous response of we can't do this. And perhaps this cry being used as a word of shriek, maybe this is when they are being beaten. And they are shrieking, they're crying out to God, Lord, deliver us. Well, verse 7 makes it very clear that the Lord has heard their cry. The Lord has seen their affliction. Continue on, verse 7. Heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. And this sorrow is a word in the Hebrew that has the idea that it stems from great pain. Come down to verse 9. Now therefore, behold, this is God speaking to Moses. Now therefore, behold, the cry, again, the shriek of the children of Israel has come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression. It says the word that is of distress and of affliction. We can just stop right there in the description of what's going on in Egypt, just from the emotional background of it. How's life going for the people of Egypt? Now again, I'm not trying to just always... Our motive should not be always finding somebody that's worse off than we are. Which Joseph and Daniel so far definitely had situations that were worse off. And I would say these people. At this point, we have people that aren't working much. This is a very different scenario. We have people that are being forced to work longer hours, harder hours, in very dire situations and being beaten for it. But you know, the response that they are having to their, and this isn't the point of the message, this is not the response I'm thinking of, but the response that they are having to their circumstances is very similar to what is being accomplished probably globally. There are those that are in great affliction, great misery, great discouragement, great depression. There is a cry that is going out, a shriek at times. There is great sorrows, many times sorrows from pain. And there's great oppression or distress or affliction. I think the great oppression, verse 9, really applies, especially when you see states like ours that are still behind other states. And there's a great a pushback, we'll say, from people because of what? That oppression. So while their circumstance is, I would have to say, we would probably all have to say, their circumstance is definitely far worse than ours right now. Their emotional response is identical to ours at this point. What is interesting that as God hears their shrieks, of their cries of shrieks, and God sees their discouragement, their misery, their sorrow, and their oppression, how does God deliver them? Obviously, God has the means and authority that certainly He could have created great weakness among all the Egyptians. He could have somehow allowed some sort of human disability that all of the Egyptians suddenly were very weak on their knees, and allowed the children of Israel to rise up and truthfully even been able to conquer Egypt if they so desired, or certainly left of their own will because they'd have nobody to stop them. Certainly God could have allowed it that those Egyptians suddenly were struck with blindness. God had done that before, or would do that here soon. And certainly as we look at all the means, all the tools, all the options that God had, because He is limitless, I don't think it's to lose point to say that what God did find as a solution was a man named Moses. That is not to say that we are to be sitting in our seats, sitting in our houses, sitting in our cars, wherever we might be, awaiting a Moses. That is to remind us that if we are a child of God, God has called us to be a Moses. To whatever extent that might be. God has called each one of us to use the gifts, the abilities that He has given to us to be a blessing, to be an encouragement, to be a Moses of sorts to those around us. And it's during this time frame that I think it's the way that we respond as Moses. Let me make this more New Testament. The way that we respond as a child of God has a great impact not only on our now, but on our future. Meaning, not only what I face in the future, how I react now will have an impact on how I will react later, but as well my children, grandchildren, if that should happen. We've discussed, my wife and I, many times in regards to how and what we are training our children during this time. I think it's been well stated, well proven, even scientifically. It seems that masks don't do anything for COVID-19. Masks don't do anything. And it's funny that one doctor will say you got to wear masks, another will say it does nothing. In fact, I can attest to the fact we went to Walmart last night, and I had forgot my mask at home, but we had some extras in the van, and it was very large. And it was super large. In fact, when I put it on in the van, I said, I think I'm going to just tuck this one into my pants. It was sort of like from under my eyes, and it went down to about the middle of my throat. But I can attest to this, is that as we were walking through this, it kept like going up, and so it was like digging into my eyes. And so you have that concept. So the whole time we're in Walmart, I'm walking around and I'm doing this. I'm pulling my mask back down. So it's back on my nose instead of sneaking up. I suppose my wife could have led me blindly through Walmart. I guess I would have lost the advantage of being there if I can't see anyway. But the annoyance of that fabric getting in, literally into my eyeballs was awfully painful. So I'm spending the entire time grabbing my face ultimately and pulling this mask back down, which is obviously the complete opposite. This virus is transmitted far greater by surface contact, by our hands, than by what's in the air. And so it has been proven time and time again. In fact, it was the initial response of the White House. Don't wear masks, it's not going to prove anything. And now things have changed, and I don't understand how all that goes. But I can tell you this. This is not a pastoral comment, this is just a Art Neutron comment. I think masks are ridiculous. I don't think that they prove anything. But I know that we've been asked to wear them in Iran. And while I can put up a fuss about this is ridiculous, I don't think this is proving anything. I think this is contrary to, or counterproductive. I can't tell you how many times I've been in and I've seen people touching their face all the time. And even our governor's remarks when he walks in with his mask and he's touching everything with his hands, putting his hands here and there. But the first thing he does, he takes his mask off and then folds it up with his hands. And I don't know, puts it in his pocket or what, but I just think everything that was on your hands now is now on that mask. If you ever use that mask, you've just lost the point of the mask. I'm not going to go out and in my response, because how I respond now will impact how I respond later potentially, and more specifically, how I respond now will have an impact on my kids. We go into a store, I put on a mask. I'm not trying to get around that. I'm not trying to avoid that. I'm not trying to fight that. I don't agree with that. But we ought to obey the ordinance of man as we submit to our God. And whether we like it or not, whether we agree with it or not, whether there's a scientific proof of it or not, when it's not contrary to God, we ought to obey that. And my response ought to be accordingly. I'm doing this because I've been asked to do this. And therefore, I will do this. My mind, I know, makes no sense. But we want to look at just 2 points. In fact, I was telling my daughters this week that we only had 2 special musics and 2 points to the message this week. And I think it was Caitlin that said that it would still take me forever to get through those 2 points. For my 2 points here this morning, some things that we need to know. As as children of God in our response, as we have opportunities to respond to chaos today, because this will end, Lord willing, this will end sometime, hopefully sooner than later. But our lives are going to suffer, and we are going to have more situations, maybe not so globally during our lifetime, but we don't know that. I know that as we get closer to the Lord's return, there's going to be more of this. There's going to be more global scenarios coming up. And so as we get closer to the return of Christ, we're going to have more and more of these events taking place. How will you respond? What is going to be lost because we are responding incorrectly to those situations? There's a couple things that we need to know. In fact, my objective is to kind of follow the story, follow the response through the book of Exodus in coming weeks. But for this week, we only have two things we want to know. Know the remedy. Moses, chapter 3. Moses, you are needed for a great cause before you. Moses, you are the one that's going to have to go back. And again, we know the story. We know the reality of Moses. We know his caution. We know his response of why me. We know his response then later of I can't speak. We know all of his excuses just like we would know our own. But we know that God doesn't step back because of excuse. Moses tried excusing himself, but God says, no, you're the man. You need to go. You need to go be this person right now to make an impact on my people. Because I've heard their cry. Because I've seen what they're going through. Now, a number of verses, and I think I have these both here in for us, but as well online as well. These are during the plagues, and I think there's great importance as we look at this. As Moses has gone back to Egypt, he's shown a bunch of signs and wonders to Pharaoh and all of his magistrates and so on. And then we begin the plague. But Exodus chapter 5, verse 1, it says, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And then signs and wonders are given by Moses and Aaron. And then we jump to chapter 7, verse 16. The Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee, saying, this is Moses or Aaron speaking unto Pharaoh from God. Here's the words of God that I'm sending to you. Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And we know that Pharaoh doesn't let them go. So we have the first plague, the waters turned into blood. Chapter 8, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. We know that doesn't happen. We then have the second plague of frogs, and then continue on with lice. Later on in chapter 8, verse 20, we have, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. That doesn't happen. We have the fourth plague of flies. Exodus chapter 9, verse 1, Then the Lord God said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. That doesn't happen. We have the fifth and sixth plagues, pestilence, disease upon the cattle, and then boils. Exodus chapter 9, verse 13, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. No go. We have the seventh plague, thunder, hail, fire falls. Exodus chapter 10, verse 3, Let my people go, that they may serve me. No go again. We have the last three plagues, locusts. Locusts upon everything. I'm not trying to say that some things are worse than others, but I would say that that's disgusting. Darkness upon the face of the earth, as far as their earth went, that would be, you won't be able to do anything. And then as well, the last one, obviously, for Egypt, death of the firstborn. These last three seem to be pretty substantial in my opinion, especially the last one. But really, locusts and darkness are quite debilitating. In the midst of these 10 plagues, God speaks through Moses 7 times, specifically saying, Let my people go. Ultimately, why? That they may serve me. Is it an interest to us that God's response to their cry, their shriek, God's response to their anguish, their depression, to their sorrow, what was that last word? I just lost it. Of a great anxiety. God's response to all of that wasn't just, Moses, you are to go and get them free so that they can just be rid of all that in their life. In other words, God's response to chaos, God's response to their situation, God's response to their trial, as we can see in all those verses, was let them go so that they might what? Serve me. Now, what is also quite fascinating about this very word here of service is it's the same word. I don't have these up on the screen, but you can either look these up or just believe me. Exodus chapter 1, verse 13. It says, and the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. Same word. Exodus chapter 1, verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage and mortar and brick and in all manner of service in the field, all the service where they made them, again, same word, serve them. And when I say same word, I'm not just talking about the English. Obviously, it's the same word in the English. I mean in the Hebrew. This is the same word. Lots of words could be used in regards to their service, to their labor. They could have used a word here that just meant simply that they labored. This is a word that is very specific. Exodus chapter 5, verse 18. Go therefore now, and here it's translated in our King James as work, and work. For there shall no straw be given you, yet shall ye deliver the tale of bricks. Obviously, we're going through some conflict here, and the Egyptians thought it best to take away what they were providing, but you have to keep up with what you were doing before. The word there, work. Again, in our English, this seems to be something that's just a menial task that you do on and on and on, but this is the same word as serve. So, let me just stop right there at Exodus 5:18. The word that God is saying, let my people go that they may, what? Serve me, is the same word that is used to describe the plight of the Israelites from the Egyptians when they take away the straw that they were being given before, but yet told to maintain the same output. That word is the word that God says, let my people go that they may serve me. Exodus chapter 6, verse 5. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in, here it's translated, bondage. They keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Exodus chapter 14, verse 5. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled in the heart of Pharaoh. This is after they've been released. This is right after the 10th, when Pharaoh comes and tells Moses, all right, go, get out of here. Exodus chapter 14, verse 5, and it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? Verse 12, is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, this is now they are outside of Egypt, but they see the Egyptians following after them. We'll get to this here in a moment. I want to read it at this point. Exodus chapter 14, verse 12. Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve, same word again, the Egyptians, than that we should die in the wilderness. It is interesting. Now, I don't think the point is the numbers in this case. I think there's a lot of cases where numbers are specific. But I find it fascinating that 7 times, I still have it on the screen here, 7 times, Moses says to Pharaoh, or Aaron says to Pharaoh, let my people go that they may serve me. 7 times that is said to Pharaoh. 10 plagues around those 7 times. 7 times in the book of Exodus, that same word is also used in regards to the suffering, the labor, the manual forced labor that they're going through. The same word is being used for them in Egypt. In other words, ultimately, a couple of things that God is pointing out to them is a question for us. Is our service for our God defined correctly? Now, I am not saying that our God stands above us with a whip. It says, you're going to continue on putting out the same output, I'm going to make life harder for you. That is, the Egyptians are not the picture of God here. But the same word that they are going through in their sorrow, God is saying, I want them to deliver so that their service is no longer to you. Their service, their commitment, their work is to me. Again, not as God as a taskmaster, not as a God with a whip in his hand, not as a God who is demanding that this is what they have to do and this is how they have to do it and this is the time that they're going to do it. But the same word is used. Now, I fear that sometimes if we were going to use the same word of work for our jobs as we do for our God, we would define it differently. Here's what I do for work. I'll still call it I'm serving my God, but it's a slightly different word that I'm going to choose to use. I'm going to be committed. I'm going to be laboring. I'm going to, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to be, I'm going to go to, I'm not saying that we should do this in church, especially now, but I'm saying I'm going to work. We got allergies and we're staying home from our service to others in our Lord. We have a commitment and a faithfulness to our jobs, but our same commitment and service to our God is oftentimes, unfortunately, a different word. If you lose sight of everything else, remind us again, God is not a taskmaster. He doesn't have a whip in his hand. He's not forcing us into really ultimately anything. But the same word is used for their labor in Egypt compared to their service to their God out of Egypt. And the first question we have to ask, is our service defined correctly? Secondly, it's very clear then for the Israelites that their work is going to be one of service. It's either going to be a service to the Egyptians, the Pharaoh, or it's going to be a service to God. We are going to serve something or someone. Who is it that we are serving? But as well, I want to remind us that even in the worst of circumstances, even of the worst settings, ultimately, this is to be a schoolroom. I think one of the first messages I gave was to be able to hear the school bell ringing. And even the worst setting produces a schoolroom for us in learning how to serve our God more effectively. Again, the remedy for the children of Israel was not just God doing some rare miracle of providing deliverance for the children of Israel. The remedy of God for the children of Israel was not just the removal of their responsibility. The remedy of the situation from God was, I'm going to send a man Moses, and I'm going to send him to deliver you so that you might what? Serve me. Our remedy in this time frame, and I know Wisconsin's ahead of us, I think at least 48 states are already ahead of us, I think. But our remedy is not being able to be where Wisconsin is, or Iowa is, and Indiana is, and Missouri is. All of our neighboring states are right now. Our remedy for the situation isn't just being able to walk somewhere without a mask. Someplace we were recently, I was wearing a mask, and some guy came up to me and he's like, I will be so glad I don't have to wear these dumb things. What do you think? I'm like, yeah, I have to agree. No, our remedy, our solution in God's eyes is not just being able to go about life without a mask. That's not the remedy. That's not the end goal. That's not the end game. What is the end game? I don't have it on the screen anymore, but what was the end game? Service to our God. So our schoolroom right now is training us how to serve our God more effectively. How is it that I can learn how to redefine my service to my God based on what I'm going through right now? How is it I can be retuned to the fact of my service to my God? Again, he's not a taskmaster. He does not have a whip. He does not talk Egyptian. Well, actually, he probably does, but you know what I'm trying to say. He is not this kind of a taskmaster that they're going through. But God's remedy, know the remedy. God's remedy wasn't just deliverance. Let's get beyond this. God's remedy was, when you get beyond this, here's what I have for you. Service to me. When we get beyond this, here's what God has for us. Service to Him. If we don't understand if we're not growing as we ought to be now in this schoolroom, I can tell you what our response will be when we get done with this. Exactly what theirs was. Well, at least when we were there, we knew what was going on. Why did you bring us out here to suffer, to die here? They even say this, were there not enough graves in Egypt for us? If we don't learn how to serve God through this, we won't know how to serve Him after this. And God's objective, God's end game for us is to know how to serve Him. We have an opportunity. In fact, we have a greater opportunity because for most of us, our time is even more so than it has ever been before. We can't just go walk around the mall and waste a couple hours. We're not able to sit in restaurants and eat and enjoy the sitting down factor. And again, I'm not saying we're wasting time, but that takes time. We aren't able to do the things that we once did, and ultimately for most people, we're having more time at home. But what I'm somewhat discouraged, this is a side note on my own, and in case it's going to turn out to be right, that even my 2 points will take forever. What I've somehow managed to do to myself is starting these master degree classes, and right now I'm finishing up the one class, and that class has already started, and so my time frame is ridiculously busy, just endless. If I'm not working at Leisers or working on a message preparation, I'm working on a class. And day after day after day after day, working on this afternoon, I have to go back home and do some more research and do some more studying and a lot more reading. And it just never ends. It doesn't stop. So while everybody else is complaining, I'm so bored, I'm thinking to myself, man, I wish I had time. I wish I could enjoy this time when I have nothing more to do. And I have nothing else to do, so it is a decision we make. But know the remedy. Remedy isn't just life when we could all be here in this room. The remedy isn't just life when I don't have to put a mask on. The remedy isn't life when I can go to a restaurant and eat. The remedy isn't life when I can go into Kohl's. We haven't been able to go to Kohl's in some months, it seems. Let's be able to go in and shop. I mentioned a month ago now how my shoes were falling apart. I can't go buy shoes. I'd love for them to be open. And I know that you can get curbside and all that, but I'd like to be able to try them on. And I don't know how that's going to... We may never be able to try clothes on ever again from this point forward. Things may be very different. You have to get into a spacesuit just to see if that new suit coat fits you. We'll see how this works. But that's not the remedy. The remedy is, here's the schoolroom lesson. How am I going to serve my God? Secondly, Exodus chapter 14. Not only do I know the remedy, but I need to know peace. Exodus chapter 14, we're going to begin in verse 5. I already read this verse, and it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, why have we done this? That we have let Israel go from serving us. Can you imagine how quickly they went from mourning? I'm talking from the Egyptian shoes. They've gone from mourning from losing the firstborn. Every home is affected in some way. And there is crying heard in all the streets. Pharaoh, probably on behalf of the citizenship of Egypt, says, get out of here. We can't handle any more of this. They aren't even hardly down the road. The dust has not even settled from their leaving. And they're looking around and they realize, wait a minute, now we have to do this work. We haven't had to do any of this hard labor for a long time. What have we done? Why did we do this? Verse 6, and he made ready his chariot, and he took his people with him, and he took 600 chosen chariots. Now, isn't this amazing? Who is he going against? He's going against his past slaves that have just been released. They're not, look, when we looked at Daniel, when they were given the opportunity to eat well, these people haven't eaten well in decades. These people haven't been having a good night's sleep in a very long time. If there could be a group of malnourished, exhausted, probably bodies full of infected wounds, if there was a group of people that could easily have been conquered with just a voice, it probably would have been these people at this moment. But notice how Pharaoh responds. I think this is just a great picture that he understands the power of their God. He took his 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. The children of Israel went out with a high hand. Now, this is great. This end of verse 8 literally means this. They went out with a high hand. If we could put this in the correlation of today. I don't know how they did high hands back in that day. Here's how we do high hands out in this day. It's when the Cubs won the World Series. What is everybody doing? Yes! And they're giving everybody high fives. And yeah, it's finally 103 years. We've get the trophy again. And there's high five. People don't even know each other. They're high fiving. This is wonderful. This is amazing. That's literally what is going on with the children of Israel. Continuing on. But the Egyptians pursued after them. All the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army overtook them, encamping by the sea. Besides, and unfortunately I have to have words like this coming up, but Pi-hahiroth before Baal-zebon. When Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and beheld the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid, and the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. Now, this is not written for us, but let me put into the modern day vernacular of they left with a high hand in conjunction with number 10. Here's what I'm envisioning. If they celebrated the way we celebrate, if they celebrated like the Cubs winning the World Series, there's some dudes, some Israelite dudes, high-fiving each other. And they're probably running up and down the line as they're walking out. Hey, man, give it to me, give me some skin. And they're high-fiving and they're celebrating. And some guy turns to give his buddy a high five. And he's one of those, as he's reaching up in the air, he sees the dust coming behind them. And somebody gets a hand in the face. It's going for the eye, going for the hand, the high five, and they whack. And the guy's like, whoa, what did you do that for? And he speaks, and he just, he points. And before long now, like every other guy is getting a hand in the face. From their high five moment turns into a smack in the face because their eyes are no longer on the hand, but on the cloud coming behind them. The Bible literally says, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel, and here we have this word again. I told you this was going to be an important word. Cried. Guess what word this is? Shrieked. They are shrieking to their God once again. A high five moment in an instant. All they had to do is see the cloud of dust of the Egyptians coming after them. That high five moment turns into one identical response to what they had in bondage. And they said unto Moses, verse 11, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did, and I already read this verse, that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, leave us alone, and we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Why did God release them from Egypt? To serve Him. Not to die in the wilderness, to serve Him. But when that next trial comes their way, how do they respond? We've forgotten about who we're serving. In fact, we'd rather go back and serve them. The circumstance that I see before us is not good. The circumstance that I'm seeing before us is we're not going to survive this. Now, we were crying unto God because we didn't think we were going to survive that. But where we are right now, this is worse than that. And so, where we are now, we wish we were back there. Hey, can I just tell you this about COVID-19? This is a pretty bad circumstance, worldwide. I do not jump on the bandwagon to say that this is all a political thing, that this is a destroy Trump thing. I know that there's probably, and I would dare say Illinois is probably one of them, that this is probably going to get dragged out long enough to do its part in destroying Trump. This is worldwide. We talked to AJ yesterday briefly, and he's reminding us that it was the weekend, and on the weekends in Turkey, they're not allowed to leave the house. They're in complete confinement every weekend. People, somewhat different than us, they're able to go out and work. Everybody's essential. Middle ages, yeah. Older and younger, they're confined to their house. The middle-aged, working people, go to work. Everybody's an essential person. Everybody's an essential employee. You do your business. You do your job. You get your work done. Come Friday, when you come home from work, you're in your house until you leave back to work on Monday. And so somewhat different than what we are doing today, during the weekday, and somewhat different than us on the weekend. And so when we talked to AJ yesterday, he sounded a little bit discouraged, and I'm wondering halfway, because he's like, yeah, we have to stay in our house this weekend. Now Egypt, Turkey has nothing to do with the re-election of President Trump. and as well as the rest of the world. This is a global pandemic. This is not a United States political issue. And the entire world is responding pretty close to what we are doing as a nation. I think the longevity and how we transition and how quickly we allow our economy to bounce back, all of that will have an impact on President Trump. But this is not a conspiracy against the president. This is a global pandemic that the entire world is dealing with. But having said that, this will someday end. And one day we may look back on this saying, oh, if only we could have that. There's probably some people right now, I can guarantee you, there's people right now that are unable to work that are saying, they're bemoaning the fact that they can't work. Let's say they go back to work tomorrow. I would dare say by August, they're saying, I need a vacation. I wish I didn't have to work. That's exactly what they're doing here. That's exactly what we are going to do. And so their response is, number one, they've lost sight of what the remedy is. They're only thinking of the here and now. They're not understanding the remedy of, we are here to serve our God, period. But they've also lost the reality of what peace is. Because all they can see is, what is my circumstance compared to what it was before? And every time we are looking at the present, the past always will seem better to us. Even if it was worse, it will seem better than our present circumstance. And I think that is just human nature. But they were sore afraid. They are shrieking out before their God. They are crying out to Moses, saying, what have you done to us? Why did you bring us out here? Just so that we could die? Is not this the word that we did tell you in Egypt? We don't want to do this. We want to stay here. Verse 13, and Moses said unto the people, this is the important part, and I'll end here. Fear ye not. That would be a hard reality when you're looking at the very present reality of all of the chariots of Egypt and all of the military officers of Egypt and all of the men of Egypt pursuing after you as if you truly are a mighty army. What in reality you are well-beaten, malnourished laborers that don't know what freedom is anymore. Fear not. And notice what he also says. Stand still. What is human nature? Gotta fight. We gotta rally the troops. Here they come. Charge! Well, I'm gonna get the response of what was it, ghost.
Too loud.
Too loud. Charge! Charge! Grab your rocks, grab your stones, grab whatever's near you, and charge! No, what does Moses say? Why? Because the remedy isn't what we think it is. Remedy is, how can I serve my God? How can we best serve my God? Fear not. That requires great trust in Him. Fear not. Yeah, easier said than done. Fear not now? You can't do that. If you trust your God, you can. Stand still. Well, you can't do that when an army is coming attacking you. You can't when they're coming with their chariots. We're on foot. They're coming at us with horses and chariots. Stand still? I either want to run towards them to fight or I want to run away from them to flee. Standing still, again, requires a service to my God. Requires a trust. But then I love this next. And see. I'm going to retranslate this verse and say, we need to fear not, stand still, and watch. Watch what God is going to do. And see the salvation of the Lord, which He shall show unto you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your, what's the word? Peace. You know what is lacking today? Two things. A remedy. And I'm not talking about vaccinations and all of that. I'm not talking about that. Talking about in the body of Christ today, here's what is lacking. Is a remedy of understanding how to better serve our God because of this. That's the goal. Yes, vaccinations and figuring out how to get rid of these ridiculous masks and all the other things that come into play, being able to go to a restaurant and eat. All the things that just seem that you add them up and say, what? Again, Turkey. Why does it make sense that everybody is able to go out of their house, certain age, the older and the younger can't, but everybody in the middle there, they're able to go out and about, Monday through Friday. Wherever you need to go, you go. Saturday and Sunday, you can't go anywhere. Does that make any sense? Really, does that make any sense? Am I the only one that thinks that doesn't make any sense? You know, if you've been exposed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what difference does it make it what you do on Saturday and Sunday at that point? But their law is you do what you need to do Monday through Friday. These 2 days, I merely did the Saturday and Sunday. They must have gotten the memo that the virus only spreads on the weekends, so you stay home on the weekends, but the rest of the time it's safe to go outside. It doesn't make sense. You know, the same thing, I'm not going to do it for political reasons, because we are citizens here, but the same thing could be said of our rules today. It doesn't make any sense. The remedy is not getting beyond that. The remedy is, and we've got to be knowledgeable of it, the remedy is God says, you are here to serve me, to glorify me. There's the remedy, there's our goal, there's our objective, there's the schoolroom lesson that we are to learn today. COVID-19 is indeed a global pandemic, and it has indeed infected many, and it has indeed caused the death of thousands, if not more. I don't know what we are worldwide as far as the deaths, but it's a huge number. It is a real illness. It is a real thing. It's not some sort of Hollywood-defined thing that's on, like the landing on the moon and all that other things that we claim. Well, that was Hollywood. It's a real deal. But the lesson for us as the body of Christ is not how to get beyond this and through this and out of this. Just like the response, the remedy for them wasn't just to get out of Egypt. The response for them was to learn how to fear not, stand still, and watch. How to truly serve our God. Fear not, stand still, and watch. I'm wondering if in the coming weeks, Illinois is going to have some big changes, just like Wisconsin recently did. And there's going to be a lot of high fives going on when that happens. Literally, I think there's going to be high five. Finally, we can give each other a high five. There's going to be high fives everywhere. And there's going to be other people that are going to be like, nope, I'm putting on the gloves first. Before they give them, and then taking it off. What was it? Somebody, if you ever watched Monk? Finally, Monk is, I forget what they saw a meme of it. Finally, Monk is cool or something like that. But nonetheless, one day we'll get beyond this. And one day when we do, there's going to be something else that we face. We have missed the lessons today. We probably won't enjoy the benefits of the next. What did the children of Israel learn right now as they went across? Well, let me just ask you, I don't want to label it. Can you imagine stepping into their shoes? The water divides. It's a miracle, is it not? This isn't recorded for us. I'm kind of filling in the blank, but the water divides for them. They walk across that on dry land. Isn't that miraculous? That's absolutely miraculous. Here's water. There's Egyptians coming behind them. They have nowhere to go but back. And their voices are saying, we should just go back. Let's just surrender. White flag, we'll go back. We forgive you. Please forgive us. Not we forgive you. We'll go back. We'll labor. We have nowhere to go. Moses says, fear not, stand still, watch what God's going to do for you. And he does this, and the waters divide, and they walk across on dry ground. How many of them, you can only answer this if you were there, so put yourself there. How many of you, as you're crossing on the miraculous dividing of the waters, are walking backwards, watching what's happening behind you? I don't know what they did, but I can tell you what most of us would do. Might as well let's keep going because we're not going to want to walk out the door now anyway. I can tell you what most of us would do, and if I was honest, probably even part of myself. The Lord had just created a marvelous miracle in front of us. Walls of water on either side of us. I just cannot even fathom it. But here's how most of us would have walked. Backwards. Watching them coming behind us. Completely oblivious to what God is doing before us. But as we finally get to the other side, and we watch the waters cave back in on the Egyptians, and they begin to understand their God in a real way. They would have missed out on that chance if there wasn't the Moses there saying, fear not, stand still, watch. Watch what God's going to do. Because if there wasn't somebody crying that out, what would they have done? White flag. We surrender, take us back. But because there was a Moses there that understood the remedy, there was a Moses there that knew peace, he was able to be a voice for them to say, stop it. Fear not, stand still. Watch what God is going to do. May we learn that lesson. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you again for who you are. I thank you for the example of the children of Israel. Again, very familiar verses, very familiar passage, very familiar events in history. I do pray that you would remind us today, in this event, knowing that someday, if you tarry, that this will soon pass, and we'll be on to the next. But may we learn our lesson today, that we might be able to truly fear not, that we might truly be able to just stand still, that we might be able to truly understand who you are, as we watch you do a work that certainly we can't do, and marvel at the wonder of our God. And we thank you for this schoolroom lesson that we get right now to learn of you. I pray that our response would be such that our children, even our grandchildren, learn not how to get around the rules, not how to fight the rules, not how to revolt, and not how to do all these other things that are so common today, but that they might learn how to fear not, stand still, and watch. And we thank you.